The Mac was never a marquee platform for gaming, but it has an important place in the medium's history nonetheless. Major studios like Bungie got their start on the Mac back in the day, and the platform's been host to countless cool and quirky titles over the decades. One such example is Bugdom. Bugdom is a platformer with some light exploration elements, one of those straightforward, get-to-the-goal types of games where any sense of depth comes from chasing a high score through collectibles. The story is expectedly light. Your quiet little insect kingdom got taken over by fire ants. Been there. So it's up to you to rescue everyone and reclaim the land. You'll spend most of your time trotting around, freeing ladybugs and cracking open nuts, which house clovers for points, health power-ups, extra lives, the usual suspects. There honestly isn't much actual platforming to do, but jumping and movement are consistent, predictable, and reliably responsive, so those rare platforming challenges never feel unfair. Since you play as a roly-poly, you can naturally curl up and roll around, which dramatically increases your movement speed, and absolutely barreling through levels is objectively fun. Just don't outrun the camera in more open areas, we'll get back to that. Enemies are fittingly also fellow animals with clever twists relative to what they are. Fire ants will spew actual fire, honeybees die after trying to sting you, fun touches like that. Most are subdued with a single kick, so unless they come at you in significant numbers, the actual threat they pose is minimal. Except for the massive bare feet that are attached to no one, I have so many questions. So the fundamentals are solid, but Bugdom doesn't really do much with its mechanics beyond what the first few levels set up. Stages can be quite large and sprawling, almost to their detriment. Most lack obvious landmarks or distinct visual features, so it's very easy to lose track of where you've been and where you need to go. And there's simply not much of interest to discover or do. Pretty much every level consists almost solely of scavenging for points and dealing with some form of unlocking a door or unblocking a path to proceed. While there's enough visual and enemy variety to help make up for this, the shallowness and repetition in the gameplay loop is noticeable, so let's highlight what variety the game does have. 3 of the game's 10 stages are boss fights, and they don't present much of a challenge. Some are ludicrously easy, in fact. Just figuring out what to do is often the tricky part, as the game makes no attempt to tutorialize or point things out to you, and some fights are pretty unintuitive as a result. Rideable vehicles in the form of bigger bugs are cute and spice things up a little bit, but they come with their own set of issues. The draw distance makes open-ended segments challenging to navigate, the collision can get a little wonky, and the dragonfly in particular just kind of breaks things. It obliterates the game feel, it's very hard to dismount close to the ground, and it's capped at unclear height limits by immediate death, which is a head-scratcher in a game that leans so heavily on exploration. It's a noticeable stumbling block in what is otherwise a reliable, if repetitive, set of mechanics. You've got pretty spaces to run around in though. Visuals are quite good, especially for the time. The player character is softly designed and approachable, and apparently named Rolly McFly. Sure. Everything is pretty cutesy, even the enemies, which gives it a true all-ages appeal, helpful on a platform like the Mac, which so often targeted schools and families. Environments are varied, ranging from bright fields and misty marshlands to imposing beehives and lava-filled caves, with a few wide-open fields of play that will happily let you just roll into the ether. High-quality visual options sit alongside ones that preserve the look and feel from the original 1999 release. Even in this lower quality mode, it still looks really nice, so much so that we recorded this whole review using it. It's not just the visuals that work in the game's favor though. The soundtrack is legitimately great, catchy, energetic, atmospheric, and a great complement to the gameplay at every turn. It's upbeat to start, stern when stages call for it, and honestly worth a listen outside of the game. So there you go. Bugdom is a slightly above average, inoffensive little platformer with mostly great presentation and some unfortunate rough spots. If it feels like one of those random, plucky little games you played in school because it was pre-installed on the classroom computer, that's because you may well have. Bugdom was packaged with many Macs that were popular in the education market in the early 2000s. Apple must have really liked it, and you may like it too, especially if you're a fan of those collectathon platformers of gaming generations gone by. So when you put it all together, Bugdom gets 3 Gloobies out of 5. It's an interesting snapshot of computer gaming at a certain point in time, and a reasonable little platformer in its own right. A fan-made open-source version of the game was released in 2020 with original developer approval, so if the game piques your interest at all or you want to relive a long-forgotten memory, it's pretty accessible today. Thanks so much for watching. Stay fresh, cheese bags. We'll catch you back here real soon.